continue working on finishing up chapter 2 slides. Some people have fluctuating work weeks. In other words, it's very common in my company that one week I'm working 32 hours and the next week I'm working 46 hours. We can forge an agreement, you and I as employee and employer can forge an agreement whereby a fixed salary is acceptable, and then my overtime is going to be calculated by taking my normal hours or my normal salary and dividing it over the hours worked, and then tacking on a premium. And I want to make sure that you understand the difference between two things. 1.5 or 1.5 times of my regular pay rate. All right, I make $10 an hour. My overtime rate is $15 an hour. I make $10 an hour. My overtime premium is what? $5 an hour. That's an important distinction when we move into our next set of calculations, which is piece rate. Your overtime rate's the whole kit and caboodle. Your overtime premium is just that tack on top of your regular rate. Okay, this is what I want to spend time on. A piece rate employee is somebody who is paid for their production. Number of units that I do quality assurance on, number of units that I assemble, number of units that I powder coat, whatever. Okay? And that's fine, as long as I'm getting paid minimum wage. That's a perfectly acceptable way to compensate my employees. As long as, number two, I'm paying for non-productive time. So if I powder coat lawn furniture, and I've got it, there's non-productive time where I'm calibrating my machine or cleaning my machine or whatever, I still got to be paid for that time, obviously, even though I'm actually not powder coating lawn furniture at that point in time. And I've got to pay minimum wage with overtime. Now, with piece rate, there's two different ways to do it. I'm going to kind of walk through the methodology here, but it's easier to kind of illustrate when we actually do the numbers, so bear with me. So the first method is important to this distinction I just put up on the board, the difference between a premium and a rate. And what the first method does is says, calculate how many units you produced times whatever your rate is, and that's your base earnings. But if you worked overtime, if there were some hours over 40 hours a week in there, then I've got to calculate and tack on this 0.5 premium. Okay, and that's going to give you your paycheck. In the second method, and again, this is harder to explain with words than it is numbers, so bear with me. So the second method basically says, you're going to get one piece rate for everything you did in the first 40 hours of production, and you're going to get time and a half that piece rate in everything you produced over 40 hours. And these two methods aren't going to give you the same result. So you have to agree with your employees and apply it consistently. Which either method is acceptable, you just have to do it consistently and apply it to everybody. Okay? And it just depends upon where the production is weighted in the first 40 hours or over 40. So let's just crunch through it. So please, on your screen, put up method A so that you can follow the steps on that. And then we're going to walk through this together. And again, I want you to put in your notes, piece rate A. So the first thing is, let's talk about the facts. I inspect the powder coated lawn furniture. And for each lawn chair that I inspect, I get 12 cents. And this last week I inspected 4,812 lawn chairs, It took me 47 1/4 hours to do that. And of those 4,812 lawn chairs, 600 of them were inspected in overtime, right? So over the 40 hours. And Mustafa is paid 12 cents for each unit. And I want you to calculate gross pay using both methods. Method A, first calculation. How much does he make in total for all 4,812 units? And please write the formula out in your notebook. So your algebraic equation should say 4,812 times 12 cents equals $577.44. Right? So for all 4,812 units, that's how much he gets. The next question is, how many hours did it take him to do that? And then you can back into his hourly rate. So if he made $577.44 for all those units, how many hours did it take him to do that? $47.25. So your second algebraic equation on your notebook, in your notebook, should indicate what his regular hourly rate is. What did you guys get for his regular hourly rate? I agree. Is everybody caught up? Did everybody get to $12.22? Serena and Alfred, are you with us? James? So here's the scoop. And again, back to this differentiation. For that last 7 1/4 hours, am I going to multiply times his overtime rate or times his overtime premium? Just his premium, because he's already been paid $12.22 for all those hours, hasn't he? So for those last 7 1/4 hours, you need to calculate his premium and then tack that on to his 577. So step 3, I'd like you to write out the algebraic equation to get Mustafa's premium. What is his overtime premium? So your next formula should say 1222 times 0.5 equals $6.11 OT premium. And your last formula pulls together the two components. The base of whatever that 577 number was, plus his overtime hours times his overtime premium. $621.74. Now let's go back to the second method. It's different. It says you have to take that 4,812 units and split it into two partitions. One, how much did he produce in the first 40 hours? And two, how much did he produce after 40 hours? Then you pay him 12 cents a unit for what he did the first 40 hours. And you pay him 12 cents times 1.5 for the units he produced over 40 hours. So that's really just one compound algebraic equation. Much easier. Piece rate and overtime piece rate, and multiply it by the respective number of units. How much is he being paid for his units over after he gets 40 hours under his belt? What's his rate? His piece rate for his, oh, sorry, I didn't ask that correctly. How much is he getting paid for any unit he produces over 40 hours? 18 cents, which is 0.12 times 1.5. So when I told you he made 4,812 units, 600 of those were over 40 hours a week, then you can back into the fact that the other 4,212 were made the first 40 hours. Does that make sense? And also I've encouraged you a number of times. I post all these lectures. The PowerPoints are here. If we go too fast through calculations in class, it's on you to go back and listen to it and rework these again. Okay, I also believe on Monday that I didn't get through all the examples, and I said you should go back into the slides and work example 3. Make sure you can do all these, because I can guarantee you if we're spending this much time in class, this is going to be the guts, the bones of what your tests are going to look like. Okay, are we ready to move on? Okay, again, I'm not going to these class periods just fly. You need to go do this one on your own. This is the second example. It's a reinforcing exercise. It's exactly the same thing. She's paid 8 cents a case to inspect shellfish. She inspected 6,897 of them in 43.5 hours. Of the 6,897, 423 of those were inspected in overtime. Calculate piece rate using both methods. We're not going to do that now, but I've got an answer screen. Obviously, you should go back and do this yourself. Okay, let's finish off the slides here so we can keep moving. Everybody's read chapter 2 as well, right? Obviously. Okay. So special incentive plans are basically some sort of tiered payment plan to get you to produce more, right? The more you produce, the higher the rate paid. This is a little bit of an antiquated pay type, because producing more, if you've got bad quality or you've got, a lot of things are failing quality control, that's not a productive methodology. So generally now, if you're having some sort of special incentive plan to produce more, it's also got to be tied into quality assurance results. But it's just basically you have different rates for different levels of production. Again, you can pay your people any way you want, as long as you're giving them minimum wage and you're paying them overtime. So this is just an example. I'm paying you X amount, 18 cents up to 2,000, 24 cents for the next 1,000, the next 1,500, etc. And lots of commission structures look like this, where you're paid X percent for every dollar of sales, but then you get a higher percentage, right, once you hit a certain level. Now commissions are, again, you can do it any way you want. You can pay straight commission to people if you want. You can pay base salary plus a commission. You can, you can really design your payment plan any way you want, as long as minimum wage is met. So let's take a look at this one, 40,000, 31.5. Okay, let me write the facts on the board, and then I'm going to have you just work this one out. So he's paid an annual salary of 40,000, quoted an annual salary of 40,000, paid semi-monthly, and he's also given a 2% incentive or commission for all sales over, let's see, this data right, over all sales over his quota of 31.5. The quota means that basically you get to keep your job if you hit that number, right? And in his last pay period, his sales were 40,000. So let me make sure you understand the facts. I guarantee him a base salary of 30,000 a year, and I pay semi-monthly. And then each paycheck I go back and I say, first off, I check to see that he made his quota. And then I say, well, if you're over quota, I'll pay you 2% of everything over quota. And in this last pay period, his sales equaled $40,000. What was his gross pay for one paycheck? Oh, okay. This isn't going to be right because I put it. So I changed the facts a little bit, obviously. Okay, so what's the first step, do you think? Tiffany? Is he paid weekly? No, he's paid semi-monthly. So what do I have to divide this by? It's a little different on the screen than I put up here. That's why you're confused. Sorry, my bad. So, but let's do. I'm working it based on the facts up here, not on the screen. So 30,000 divided by 24. His regular gross paycheck's $1,250, right? Then what else does he get, Alfred?
2% over 31.5.
Okay, so what's the calculation there?
40,000 minus 31.5.
Yeah, times
That's
0.02. So how much was that? 8,500, yeah, that's right, 170. I'm just adding those numbers together, aren't I? 1420? Regular gross paycheck. Okay, and again, I apologize, I just pulled this data off quickly. This example is the exact same thing, but he's paid bi-weekly, so I'm dividing by what? 26. Okay, non-discretionary bonus. A non-discretionary bonus is when profit sharing is included as part of his wage. In other words, I'm going to pay you $9 an hour, and then every employee here gets 0.1% of the net profits for the last month. Okay, that's a non-discretionary bonus. As the employer, I can't pick and choose when I give you that. It's written right into your contract. And if that's the case, when I calculate overtime, I have to add in those non-discretionary bonuses. In other words, I can't just take the $10 an hour I quoted you. I also have to add in that 0.1% of the net profit before I go calculate either the overtime rate or the overtime premium. Is all of a sudden payroll seeming a lot more complicated than you thought? There's a lot to it. I mean, most companies just, there's not, all these things aren't going on. But there certainly can be, right? And we haven't even gotten into things like pay differentials for night shift or, truckers over there, truckers get, a per mile or per diems. There's a whole vast swath of things we didn't even cover here. These are kind of the basic kinds of gross pay calculations. Okay, a profit sharing plan, it can be discretionary or non-discretionary. If profits are distributed as stock, it's still going to show up on your W-2. They can put it right into your retirement or your savings account. They can pay you out cash. They can do whatever they want. In any of those situations, that is all W-2able wages. It's going to show up as gross wages. Okay, let me show you a couple things. One is I did talk to tech support. What the heck just happened to those? Oh, for Pete's sake, did that not get loaded? I'm sorry, I'm talking to myself. Okay, so where those Excel templates are, this is very strange, which I pointed out to them, the student resources can only be unpacked through my instructor resource access. How helpful is that? So I went and got them, and I thought that I had posted them, but I obviously have not quite made it there yet. So we will pick back up with that on Friday. But there's no sense, because that product code they wanted, we don't have that. We didn't purchase that. So I'm gonna put them out here for you, the Excel spreadsheets. Let's go through these questions, the discussion and review questions, and then don't give me your homework today. You're going to finish chapter 2 for Friday, and then I'll take it all together. Okay, so you've got to do the payroll problems that are in chapter 2, and then I'll take all of them together on Friday, but I want to use the last 10 minutes and just go through these, since that's what was due for today. Okay, so what are we on? Reviews, questions 2, 9, 13, and 20. What page am I on? 2-33. Thank you. David, number 2. In determining the existence of an employer-employee relationship, the IRS groups the items of evidence into which general categories?
Put the common law relationship as the ABC has included behavioral control, financial control, and the relationship between employer and worker.
That's absolutely it. So they're going to look at essentially 3 things. Behavioral control, can anybody give me an example of that?
They can tell you what work to do.
Yeah, they tell you how to accomplish your tasks, when to do them, where to do them, what tools to use. Financial control is the second. That's examples of that is, do you submit a time card or an invoice? Do they pay you overtime or not? Okay, those are all financial control aspects. And then perceived relationship is, are you being issued a W-2 or a 1099? When you come in the door, do they ask you to fill out an I-9 and a W-4? That indicates employment status, right? So these are the 3 categories the IRS is going to look at. Okay, number 9. Cody, what are the types of exempt white-collar employees?
Executives, administrators, professional employees, highly compensated employees, computer professionals, and outside salespersons.
That's it. Those are the 6 categories. And if you, I guess that's 7 actually. If you don't fit into one of those categories, there's no situation that you're going to be exempt. You should also be aware that you should be able to define what makes somebody an executive. Can I hire you as my person that cleans up at night and call you my chief facilities executive? No, because you don't have power to hire or fire. You don't have discretionary capacity. You don't have, a professional certification or advanced degree to do this job. So it's not just what the title says, it's the details of your duties. Okay?
So are business owners not included in that? Because we're in the book.
Business owners are included. They're exempt. I mean, you're not going to probably pay yourself overtime anyways. You're going to take dividends out of your business or guaranteed payments out of your business. Okay, number 13. Eric.
So this is the conditions where travel would be counted as work time would be, for example, if someone was traveling, they'd have to get paid for the hours they're driving also. And they would get a premium rate for doing that, because it's their normal work.
So say that I work in Chicago and I go and service refrigerators all over the urban area in Chicago. That's what my job is. So I leave my home in Oak Park in the morning and I drive to Highland to repair my first refrigerator. Am I compensated for that time? That's commuting. When you leave your front door,
Going to like your main office, but you're going straight to.
even, so say this day and age, you probably don't go to the office to pick up paperwork. You log in the morning and they've got your, your service contracts for the day are all digitized and you've got your iPad and off you go, right? So that first that first leaving your front doorstep to your first gig is commuting,
No matter how far away.
no matter how far away it is. Then I leave Hyde Park and I go to Wintergreen, I'm paid for that.
But technically, if you have a fixed work location, then that person would be paid there, right?
If you have a
Like if-
fixed,
Typically, you have to go, say, to the shop to check in, or
Yep.
clock in before you go to that first job, and your employer asks you to go straight to that job rather than the fixed location.
right?
It-
It's, I don't think so, Tanner. I think when you leave your doorstep, that first set of mileage that you drive. So is what you're saying, let's do an example.
Well, basically, the book just said,
Yeah, read this to me. Let me make sure I understand what you're asking.
It says,
What page are we on?
I'm not sure, I just.
Oh, go ahead.
I pulled up from like 4 different spots in the books and only give you one thing.
Okay,
But basically, it went over, let me just find the part that I'm talking about. The book said, if you're asked to drive to a different location for the fixed work location, then the employee can count it as time.
so that would be like, normally I do go 5 miles away and check in and get paperwork. But this morning, my boss calls me, is like, oh my gosh, there's an emergency. Don't come get paperwork, just go straight to this other place. Is that the example we're talking about? And then the book's saying that I would be paid for that.
It says that you, as the worker, you can count this as time.
I see. Okay, so that's so
But you have to have a fixed-
I'm not disagreeing if that's what the book says. My example was such that I didn't have a fixed work spot. Every morning I went to a new gig. Okay, I would definitely buy that. Kai?
So say your workday starts at 8 o'clock and you're spending part of that driving to the location. Are you compensated for the time that during,
Can you shut that, James, please? Sorry.
are you compensated for the time driven during work hours?
So that's an interesting question. I mean, technically, if your workday started at 8, you should be on site
Right.
with your tools out and starting to work on your first refrigerator.
The example, like, oh, we need you to go even further to this place or whatever, so you're spending more time driving, that would be considered time.
I don't think that's compensable. I think that is considered commuting.
So I work for a water wastewater company.
Right.
This past summer, and there were a couple times where over the weekends we'd get called in to do kind of an emergency day. And we wouldn't get paid for our travel time to the site,
Mm-hmm.
but we would charge them for our travel time.
Mileage. Oh, wait, say that again.
You would charge the customer,
Mhm.
whatever,
Mm.
homeowner association. You would charge them even though we weren't getting paid.
Yeah,
you would
and
charge them.
yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. Your employer's actually billing time that he's not paying you for. I would imagine that that's totally viable based upon what we're just learning.
So if certain examples, say you're a specialty repair person, you normally be driving a vehicle in the city.
Mhm.
For example, for the employer says, you know what, I'm going to put some money, take care of something, it's going to take you 8 hours to get there right away.
Right.
You have to compensate the employee.
There's got to be something statutorily that talks about just the adjective you used, extremes.
Right.
Let me just take a, where does it talk? Does anybody have the book in front of them where it talks about travel time?
2-215-2.
I'm just going to scan this really quick and see if it gives us any indication.
I think that's the traveling during time to correspondence.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've got, when the travel time is to go to a one-day job in another city, perform during regular work hours, and or used to go between cities during work hours, they would be due paid for travel time.
Which covers your example, Alfred. So on the bottom, or the kind of the middle of page 2-16, an employee who regularly works at a fixed location is given a special one-day work assignment in another city. Time work includes the travel time. So it's pretty easy if I had to get on a plane and go to Boston from Philly. It's less clear to me if I'm in this massive urban sprawl of Chicago and I'm going between Hyde Park and Wintergreen. Is that a different city? So my point is, I'm sure there's deeper statutory guidance here than we're seeing. And if I was the employer in a situation like, when you leave Missoula, it's pretty clear you've left our city and you're going to Butte. It's way less clear when you get into the big urban sprawl scene, isn't it? So I would look that up if I was that employer.
One other thing you can add to that, if they're in a company vehicle.
Right.
Company tools, the company's liable for their driving time.
Right.
Insurance-wise, they do have to pay for their time. Can't not be somebody to get into an accident.
Interesting. So that's a workers' comp tie-in.
Yeah, there's some connection between that and what we're talking about, I think.
I've got something in the back of my mind that says you're right, but I can't pull it up as to what it is.
In a lot of companies that do that, they use that per diem as to kind of offset the
Mhm.
time.
And again, let me just point out, as you can see, I mean, I certainly don't have the answer off the top of my head to everything. If you're an employer or you're managing or you're owning a business that's got any of these special caveats, you would want to know what the law is around it, right? Okay, number 20. Who am I on? Tiffany?
The overtime premium approach is used. How does overtime premium pay calculate? The overtime premium pay is calculated by taking all the hours, including overtime, and multiplying by regular pay, then multiplying just the overtime by half the regular rate.
Right. It's just back to this. OT premium is 0.5 of your regular hourly rate. Okay, discussion question number 2. Kelly?
Along with many other companies, Sanchez Printers observes the Friday after Thanksgiving as a paid holiday. The company requires each employee to make up Friday's lost hours in the following work week by working extra hours without pay. Is Sanchez Printing proceeding legally by requiring its employees to work extra hours without compensation to make up for the hours lost on Friday holidays?
What do you think?
Certainly not legally.
Absolutely not.
They have to be paid overtime if the company could use a comp rate if it was agreed upon in advance, but they still have to pay overtime.
They absolutely have to pay overtime. There's no way around that. And then number 5, what do we do when I have different wage rates? 3 options, whichever rate I was working when I hit the 40 hours, or you can pay me overtime based on the highest rate, or we went through that calculation where we did weighted average. I worked 38 hours at $11 an hour and 6 hours at $8 an hour. Tally them all out and divide by the 44 hours. Okay, so on Friday, we'll go over the rest of Chapter 2. You will hand that in. Also, do continuing payroll problem, that big fold out that we talked about, Chapter 2. Because I don't have the Excel templates, let me back up. I'll when I go home tonight, which will be, I probably won't get home until about 9 o'clock tonight, I'll load those templates on Moodle in that first section called various documents or whatever it is. And you should do 2-3 using that template. You'll see it. You'll just double click on it. It'll pull up an Excel worksheet. There's one for instructions and one for a tab that says E2-3. And then the rest of them you do manually. And we'll start on Chapter 3 on Friday. Okay. Bye.